أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Jazakumullah to you all for joining today's class, especially to those who have been waiting patiently and have joined early. On to the class. Can I have a student for opening dua, please?
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
I would request G3638 to kindly unmute the mic.
G3638, Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm well. So would you like to start with Ta'awuz and Tasmiyah, and then you can read the dua for me?
Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري. Lord, expand my mind and make my task easy for me. Taha, verses 26 to 27.
Jazakallah. So when we recite a tashdeed, remember just one thing to note here is that when we recite it, it is a strong sort of connection, and we connect the shadda onto the previous letter. So when we say Rabbi, it's not Rabbi, it's Rabbi. Yeah. So Rabbi shrah li sadri.
Rabbi shrah li sadri.
Yeah. And wayassir li amri.
وَيَسِّرْ لِي أَمْرِي.
Okay, Jazakallah. That was really well revised. Thank you, Jazakallah. Okay, on to the lesson for today. So today's lesson is lesson number 32, and today's date is the 30th of June 2022. Today will be a revision lesson, and we'll be revising the verses of Surah Ar-Rahman, verses 47 to 56 today. Okay, and just quickly we will run through the etiquettes of the class, and by now I'm sure all of you are very familiar with these etiquettes. They are important because we are reciting the word of Allah, and it is to be given due dignity and respect and decorum while we're in the class. So it's really important to have done these things. So you should have done ablution, which is wudu. You should be wearing clean clothes. You should have your head covered. You should be sitting in a quiet place. You should ideally have parental supervision, and you should have the correct ID. And I've noticed most of you do have your correct IDs. If you are still encountering issues, you are welcome to email us, and then we can help you there. Okay, so on to the next part of our class. Today, we're just going to go over the rule that was introduced before. And today it's mad, the normal elongation. And the letters of mad, there are 3, and they are alif, waw, and a ya. So mad means to prolong. If alif is preceded by a letter carrying a fatha, if waw sakin is preceded by a letter carrying a dhamma, and if ya sakin is preceded by a letter carrying a kasra, the mad letter should be prolonged for 2 seconds, 2 counts, or 2 beats. So what does that mean? Preceded means if the letter before the alif contains a fatha, if the letter before a waw sakin is carrying a dhamma, or if the letter before the ya sakin is carrying a kasra, we will elongate each of these letters. So if you see a letter with a fatha before an alif, the alif will be prolonged for 2 seconds. If you see a letter with a dhamma with a waw before a waw sakin, the waw will be prolonged. And if you see a letter with a ya sakin that carries a kasra before the ya sakin will be prolonged. So the examples over here you can see. So in this instance you have an alif here and you have a fatha before it. So in this instance we will recite this letter here for 2 seconds. So it will be read as kha, and then fama qama. So you can see the rest of the letters are also carrying a fatha, but they are for 1 second. But because this fatha letter is followed by an alif, we prolong it for 2 seconds. So kha fama qama. Again, the same thing applies to the ya sakina. If you see a letter that carries a kasra before the ya sakin, we also prolong it for 2 seconds. Fi, and again, the same rule for alif and fatha. So, fihima. Okay, so that's the rule of the letters of mad, and which means the normal elongation. Okay, so on to the part of our class where we're just going to revise the words that we've so far, the verses that we're learning. It's important to know what they mean. And so I'm going to take you through the words, the split word translation of the meaning of the verses that have been introduced. I should just run through them myself, and then inshallah we'll continue the lesson and we'll listen to some of the hifz. Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Okay. وَلِمَنْ, and for those who خَافَ مَقَامَ, fear station, رَبِّهِ, of his Lord, جَنَّتَانِ, there are 2 gardens, فَبِأَيِّ, which then, آلَاءِ, of the favors, رَبِّكُمَا, of your Lord, تُكَذِّبَانِ, will you 2 deny? Zawata, both with, afnanin, many branches, varieties of trees, fabi'ayyi, which then, ala'i, of the favors, rabbikuma, of your Lord, tukadhibani, will you 2 deny? One moment, sorry about that. Okay. Fi, which means in, hima, both of them, aynani, there are 2 fountains, tajrijani, flowing, fabi ayyi, which then, ala'i, of the favors, rabbikuma, of your Lord, tukadhibani, will you 2 deny? Fihima, in both of them, min kulli, of every kind, fakihatin, fruit, zawjani, will be in pairs, fabi'ayyi, which then, ala'i, of the favors, rabbikuma, of your Lord, tukadhibani, will you 2 deny? Muttaqina, reclining, ala, above, furushim, carpets, batwa'inuha, which are lined, min istabraqin, of thick brocade, wajana, and ripe fruit, al-jannataini, of the 2 gardens, danin, will be within reach, fabi'ayyi, which then, ala'i, of the favors, rabbikuma, of your Lord, tukadhibani, will you 2 deny? Okay, on to the practice session of our class today. So can I have a student to practice these verses with me for now?
Yes. I will unmute G3 588.
G3 588.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm well. So would you like to recite the verses that are in front of us? If you start with A'uz, and then I'll help you if you need it.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولمن خاف مقام ربه جنتان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان ذواتا أفنان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهما عينان تجريان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان
Jazakallah. G3588. Can I stop you there? Jazakallah. You recite very, very well, especially the elongations, which you did very well. So that was really, really good. Okay, so just bear in mind when we're reciting, sometimes we make tiny mistakes, and this is one of them. So over here, this is the lesson that we just learned, the lesson of mad. So when you see an alif and a letter preceded by a fatha, what do we do in this case?
We prolong it for 2 seconds.
Yes. Okay. So do you want to read that again? So start from here. The.
ذواتا أفنان.
Well done, Jazakallah. So just remember to prolong at the correct place. So you have to elongate at the for 2 seconds in the right places. Okay, and just quickly over here, if you could read this verse for me again. Khwafa.
خاف مقام ربه جنتان.
Okay, so this rule here of Noon Mushaddad, are you aware of the rule?
Yes.
And what is the rule of Noon Mushaddad?
We have to press on it.
Yes,
like
that's right.
Sound.
If you could repeat yourself.
A nasal sound.
Well done. That's exactly what I was looking for. So when you see a noon mushaddad or a meme mushaddad, there's a special rule and it's called nunation, which means we have to make it a ghunna sound. And the ghunna sound only occurs when we give it some time, and it needs to be recited for 2 seconds. And because this is a shadda above the noon, we have to recite the letter quite strongly. So but we can hold, there are 2 noons underneath that W shape here, this shadda here, and you can hold on to the first one in order for the nasal sound to occur. So do you want to try that one time? So if you could read that with the nasal sound. So if you want to recite from the beginning of the verse, it might help.
خاف مقام ربه جنتان.
Well done. That was much, much better. So just bear in mind, so when we learn, sometimes we don't remember to do these, but they're quite important. So just remember to recite that correctly next time as well. Okay. Jazakallah. G3588. Can I have another student for practice, please?
Yes. Next student will be G3544.
G3544. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamualaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Okay, so would you like to recite these verses? Start with Ta'awuz.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Okay, can you recite from here onwards? Over here, down here.
Are you going to move the page then?
Yes, I will. If you read that bit, and then I'll move it for you.
فيهما من.
Oh, 1 second, I went the wrong way. 1 second. Okay, go ahead. It's min because this is an ikhfa sound. So when we see a nun sakin, what follows it is very important. In this case, it's a kaf, and in this case, we will recite this as min. So if you want to read that again, فيهما من
فيهما
yeah.
من كل فاكهة زوجان
Okay, so just can I just quickly stop you there 1 second? So when you see this rule here, this nun sakin rule here, the munavan letter, which is this one here, when you see a fatha, then a kasra, then or a dhamma, then 2 strokes together, it indicates that there's a nun sakin in that letter as well. And what you need to do is remember that it's really important what letter comes after that. So in this case, there's a za here. And in this case, we do have to do ikhfa here as well. So the noon gets hidden, but partially. So in this case, we read it like an ikhfa again. So we read this as Kihatin Zawjan. Okay, so that's quite tricky because there's a couple of sounds that we have to be careful about. So when we recite this one here, if we were to read it by itself, it would be read as din, a very clear noon sound. So with a noon, when your tongue touches the top of your mouth, din. But when we do the ikhfa rule, which applies here because of this za, we make the sound as din zawjan. Did you hear that sound? Din. Which my tongue is not touching the top of the roof of my mouth, it's slightly back. So that's how we express that. And it needs to be expressed for 2 seconds. So try that. That's much better, yes. So it's read as Kihatin Zawjan. I'm sure you'll get the hang of it, but there is a difference between thin and thin. Okay? So, okay, go ahead and recite the rest of it.
فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان متقين على فرش بطائنها من استبرق.
Okay, would you like me to go through it with you? I think that would help you to learn as well. So first, if you could go through this verse with me, because this is quite long and it has to be different to the 2-second rule that we just learned. So it's فبأي
آلاء ربكما تكذبان.
Okay, it has to be quite a lot longer than that. So فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان.
فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان.
Okay, just remember you have another one coming up and it's very long. So let's read this together. Muttaqi'in.
متكئين
على furushim. Can you see this little meme here? So the noon of this munavan letter turns into a meme. Okay, so it's shim, shim. Bata'inuha. Okay, this was very long, so it's 5 to 7 seconds long. It has to be quite long. Okay, min istabraq. Okay, so there's quite a few rules here. So this one is an ishad. We sound it very clearly as nun sakin. Min istab, because this is a qalqala, and raq. We have to stop here, but this is a qalqala, and it's quite a strong sound. Okay. Right. Okay. Wajanal jannataini.
مخرجنا الجنتين
دان
دان
فبأي
فبأي
آلاء
آلاء
ربكما
ربكما تكذبان.
Okay, Jazakallah, that was really good reading. Just bear in mind when you recite the Holy Quran, ensure that you recite it for the elongations for long enough, okay? There are different lengths of elongation, and you have to make a difference between each length so that the words don't, the meaning doesn't change, okay? Jazakallah G3544. Jazakallah. Okay, on to the Hifz part of our lesson for today. Can I have a student to do the Hifz, the homework that has been set?
Okay, I will unmute G3670.
G3670, Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
How are you today?
Alhamdulillah, good. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm well. So just one moment, G3670. Okay, so where are you going to recite from? Have you recited before?
Yes.
Okay.
Up to 41.
41. Okay, let's take you from 41 onwards. So go ahead, when you're ready, you can start. So
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
before you start, can I just quickly take you through the ta'awuz? So you are reading well, but you just need to correct something here. So it's a'udhu billahi.
Okay. أعوذ بالله
Minash shaytanir rajim.
من الشيطان الرجيم.
Okay, so when you see a shadda, it means that we have to connect that shadda somewhere, okay? And in order to connect it, you have to look at the letter preceding it that carries a vowel. What you need to do is you need to connect it. So we in this case, you're saying mina shayta, but it has to be joined. It has to be mina shayta. Try that again.
Okay. من الشيطان
Nirrajim.
الرجيم.
Okay, so just remember that in future, inshallah. Okay, go ahead. You can go ahead and recite now.
Start from 42.
Yeah, that's fine.
يعرف المجرمون بسيماهم فيأخذوا بالنواصي والأقدام فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان هذه جهنم التي كذب بها مجرمون يطوفون بين هذه وبين حميم آن فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان. ولمن خاف مقام ربه جنتان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان.
Yeah, Zawad.
أفلان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان. That's all I know.
Okay, Jazakallah. That's up to 50. So from verse 42 to 50. Okay, that was well read. I'm just going to take you through it quickly. One second, one moment. Let me get you to where we need to be. Okay, so when we see verse 42 over here, when you started, when you recited this over here, what did you, if you recite this verse again, sorry, which one was it? Let me just see. It was verse 42. Okay, so can you recite for me verse 42 again? I'm going to just take it off the screen. Go ahead and recite it again for me. Oops, go ahead. Yu'raful.
يُعْرَفُ الْمُجْرِمُونَ بِسِيمَاهُمْ فَيُؤْخَذُ بِالنَّوَاصِي وَالْأَقْدَامِ.
Yeah, okay, so that's why I was checking. You made the same. So what happens when we're reciting, it's really important to check what we're learning. And who teaches you? I mean, how are you learning?
So I first look at it, and
Yeah.
then I try to say by my own, and if I can't, I listen to it.
Okay. It's really important to listen to it, because when we listen to it, we get a correct idea of whether we are correct or not. Meaning to say, while you're listening to it, I'm sure the thing that you've memorized in your head, you're repeating it as well. So that's a good way to correct. So in this case, so when you came across this ya here, you actually said, let me find it for you. This one here. So this one here, you both times you said ya rather than you. So you said yeah, and it's just really important to make sure to check that what you're learning it with the correct strokes as well. Yeah, it's really important to listen to it as you're learning it. Your learning is really good. You've learned very well, and you've got good memory. You've actually said revised it well, but you also need to remember to check what you're learning. Okay. So just a few other mistakes. So the mistake would have been where when we start off, obviously you read that very well, you read it for long enough, but in other places, I think what happens is we just get used to reading quite fast because we're learning, but it's still really important to stick to the rules, and you do need to ensure that you recite these muds for long enough, okay? Okay, and another point was on verse 47 when you said, I'm not sure what you said to verse what you said to this letter here, verse 47 kha, this kha, it sounded like a ha to me, so just be careful to check it. That's really important. Okay. Jazakallah G3670. I think we may have lost G3670. Okay, can we have another student, please?
Yes, I will unmute G3661 now.
G3661. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Jazakallah. So where will you be reciting from today?
The first from Ar-Rahman.
From the beginning?
Yeah, I don't know much because I'm just starting to learn it.
That's fine. So what's important about these classes is that you try to learn as much as you can, and it's good to keep up. But if you can't, just try to catch up over the weekend as well. That really helps. So you might be able to do that. Okay, so do you want to start from the beginning then?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الرحمن علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان الشمس والقمر بالحسبان والنجم والشجر يسجدان والسماء.
G3661?
Yeah.
Are you still there? Are you finished, have you?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so just one moment. I'm just going to quickly go through it with you. Okay, so that was really good. That was verse 7. So you've learned 7 verses so far, which is brilliant. Okay, so let me just quickly take you through it. So when we're reciting, it's really important to recite it slowly enough in order to do all of the elongations correctly. So are you aware of how long this elongation is for? So this stroke here. Do you know how long we recite that for?
2 seconds.
Well done. Okay, so could you recite that for me, how you would recite it if you were reading it? Ar-Rahman.
Ar-Rahman.
Okay, so it's really important to do the elongations for the correct amount of time. So when we come across, for example, the elongation here, yes, Judan, when you stopped here, this elongation wasn't long enough. You read it as yes, Judan. And what it is that especially when we're coming to a stop, the stop is actually 2 seconds or more, simply because we're coming to the end of the verse. But in this case, you can keep it for 2 seconds for the sake of ease. Because this rule is for 2 seconds. So while we're reciting, if I was to ask you to recite this verse again, one najmu of Faiha, go ahead and do that.
One najmu wa shajar yasjudan.
Yeah, okay, so yasjudan. Yes, Judan.
Yasjudan.
Okay, it has to be exact for 2 seconds or more, especially that it's at the end of the verse. But for ease, I'm only telling you it's 2 seconds. Okay, so 2 seconds. So bayan, all of these. Look, if you can see, bihusban, yeah, zan. They're all 2 seconds long. Okay, so when you're reciting, especially when you come to the end of the verse as well, ensure that you do it for long enough. Okay, that's 2 seconds each. Yes.
Okay, can I ask
Okay.
a question?
Yes, go ahead.
But are we,
Go ahead. G3661, you still there?
yeah.
Okay, what's your question?
Would we be when are we going to enter G3 class?
So we're currently in the 7th week at the moment, and we've got 10 weeks on this class. So there's 3 weeks left for the class. And by the end of the 3 weeks, we should have completed Surah Ar-Rahman. Yes?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Jazakallah. Okay. Jazakallah G3661. Can I have another student, please?
Yes. Next student will be G3674.
G3674. Assalamu alaikum. G3674. Can we have another student?
Okay. Next student will be G3667.
G3667. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamualaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. How are you?
Good, alhamdulillah. How are you?
I'm well, Jazakallah. So would you like to start? Where are you reciting from today?
The beginning.
Okay, go ahead if you want to start.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الرحمن علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان الشمس والقمر بحسبان والنجم والشجر يسجدان والسماء رفعها ووضع الميزان ألا تطغوا في الميزان وأقيموا الوزن بالقسط ولا تخسروا الميزان والأرض وضعها للأنام فيها فاكهة والنخل ذات الأكمام والحب ذو العصف والريحان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان خلق الإنسان من صلصال كالفخار وخلق الجان من مارج من نار فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان رب المشرقين ورب المغربين فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان مرج البحرين يلتقيان بينهما برزخ لا يبغيان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان يخرج منهما اللؤلؤ والمرجان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان. That's all I know.
Okay, that was verse 24. Jazakallah, that was really good reading. One moment, and I'll just quickly take you through it. Okay, so while we're reciting, I understand even while we're reading, reciting it, we have our own methods, and that means that we read quite fast just because we know what we're reciting next. It's very important, even while you're reciting the Holy Quran to somebody, once you've learned it, it's important to take it slowly, and the reason for that is that there are rules that you will not be able to do if you read it fast. So all students, I would recommend this, is that though you may have your own way of reciting, you do need to slow down and in order to do correctly all of the rules. So let me take you through this. So if you read from the screen for me, G3667, if you could read the first 2 verses for me.
Okay. Ar-Rahman Allama al-Qur'an.
Okay, so you're reciting well. Keep going and I'll explain to you. Go ahead.
خلق الإنسان
علمه البيان الشمس والقمر بحسبان.
Okay, do you want to
والنجم
slow down? Just slow down, take it slowly, because while we're reciting the Holy Quran, it is the word of Allah and it does need due respect. And so what happens is that if we recite it slowly, we can understand that we're reading something special, and we do need to go slower. So if you could just go a teeny bit slower, and then you'll be able to recite it better. Go ahead.
Okay. والنجم والشجر يسجدان والسماء رفعها ووضع الميزان.
Okay, can I stop you there? So did you notice the difference between you reciting it now from the page and when you were reciting it to me? Did you notice the difference?
Yes.
Okay, you've learned it very, very well, and you know what's coming next, so you're quite quick. But what you need to do is you do need to slow it down while you're reciting so that you can do all of the rules. In this case, you did adhere to this rule. You actually corrected yourself, which is a really good thing that you did. And actually, while you were reading it before, you read it on verse 16, which is quite a challenging. Oops, sorry, let me just go back to it. A challenging part, and you read it so well, and it was really well connected. Let me just find it for you. There we go. Right, so this is what I'm talking about. You read that very, very well. So you correctly elongated the jim and the alif, and you also connected it well onto the noon mushaddad, which was quite a tricky thing to do. But sometimes what happens is that while we're reciting, we forget to adhere to those rules, or the rules of elongation especially. And you corrected yourself here, but that's the case with all of the verses. A lot of the verses have this word here, and that word is very, very long. So you just need to pay attention to the correct elongations. Okay, so if you're reading fast, you won't be able to do it in any case. So but that's really good learning and really good reading. Just make sure to make those corrections as you go. Okay.
Okay.
Jazakallah G3 667. Okay, so can I have another student, please?
Yes, next student will be G3 685.
G3 685. Assalamu alaikum. G3 685. Are you there? Okay. Can I have another student?
Yes. It is G3 688.
G3 688. Assalamu alaikum. G3 688.
Okay, he's not unmuting.
That's fine.
Next student can be G3 644.
G3 644. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Glad to have you with us. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm well. So where will you be reciting from today?
41.
41.
Yes.
Okay, Jazakallah. Okay, so would you like to start with the awuz?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يعرف المجرمون.
Sorry, can I just stop you? 41 starts with Fabi ayyi ala. Next verse is yu'raful. That's 42.
فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان يعرف المجرمون بسيماهم فيؤخذ بالنواصي والأقدام فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان هذه جهنم التي يكذب بها المجرمون يطوفون بينها وبين حميم آن فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان ولمن خاف مقام ربه جنتان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان ذواتا أفنان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان
فيهما عينان تجريان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيهما من كل فاكهة زوجان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان متكئين على فرش بطائنها من استبرق وجنى الجن ندان
جنتين دان.
جنتين دان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان.
Okay, so that's verse 56, yeah? So from 41 to 56. That was really good learning. You've memorized it very well. Okay, just a few things. So again, as with all of the students, what's happening is that when we're reciting, the elongations are still something we just need to pay a bit of attention to. What I would like you to do is, I just want to quickly ask you, how are you learning?
From the Kaisab.
Yeah, and you know the Qari Sahib, he recites it, the elongation, so this one here is quite long, isn't it? Yeah, and when we're reciting, when you're relating it to me, it's very short, it's about 2 seconds long. And just bear in mind that you have to maintain the elongation, okay? Just a quick question. So do you know what rule that is there? Do you know what rule that is? I've just underlined it for you. The noon sakin, can you see this noon sakin here? This one here. Do you know what rule that is? That's a noon sakin rule, and that's an ikhfa rule. So when you see a sin after it, we sound it partial noon sound, not a complete noon sound. So how would you recite this? Could you read this verse for me?
خلق الإنسان من صلصال كالفخار.
Okay, so you read it correctly here. That was really, really good reading. So you do understand the rule of ikhfa, but then there's another rule of ikhfa here. And do you know where the other one is in this verse? There's one more. Do you know where it is? Okay, so for the rule of ikhfa, which is the noon sakin or tanween rule, and we have two types. So this is the first one, a noon sakin, which you see. The other one is this one here. So this is a, what is this? Do you know what stroke this is? Okay, and that's a kasratain, which means it carries a noon sakin in it after the kasra. So it's rather than li, it's lin. But because after the noon sakin, you have to pay attention to what letters there. This is a kaf. In this case, this would be an ikhfa. So how would you recite this as well? So if you could recite this one for me, this one here, how would you recite it? Or with the next letter? Okay, so you know how to recite this one. This one's insan. Okay, that's how you read that. The same applies here because this is a noon sakin in this lam after the kasra that's underneath it, because there are two kasras here. So what happens is this also turns into a ikhfa, and in this case we will read it as lil kal fakhar. Yeah.
Okay.
And again, this is the other, remember I was telling you, this one is the other ikhfa. So do you want to read the whole verse again? But there are 3 ikhfas in this. I'm going to underline it for you. Go ahead and recite it with an ikhfa. Go ahead.
خلق الإنسان من صلصال كالفخار.
Okay, so the noon is partially hidden. Rather than in with your tongue touching with a clear noon sound, it's a in. Yes? خلق الإنسان من صلصال كالفخار. Okay?
Okay.
So it's rather than in, it's in. Yeah? A partially hidden noon. Okay? Right, okay. And just one more thing. So when you came to verse 43, if you could read verse 43 to me again off by heart, so not 43, it's 44. هذه
هذه جهنم التي يكذب بها المجرمون.
Yeah. Okay, so you've corrected the mistake that you made. So when you read it to me before, you said, one second, let me find it for you. Where was it? هذه, okay, هذه جهنم التي. This one you read as a mallati. I think that just happens sometimes when we're reciting. We just need to remember what the correct strokes are above each letter. Okay. Just be mindful of that. And the way to do that is to continually check it with somebody, get somebody to listen to you as well, just to make sure you're learning it correctly. Okay. Jazakallah. Okay, Jazakallah G3644. That was really good reading. So, okay, can I have another student, please?
Yes, sorry. G3687. I will try.
G3687. Assalamu alaikum. Are you there?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. Jazakallah. So where are you going to be reciting from today?
Verses 1 up to...
If you want to start, then you can stop when you like. Go ahead.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Okay, G3687, can I just stop you just quickly there? So again, the same thing. So sometimes we just make it a habit rather than we don't know the rule. I'm sure you know this rule. So when we recite these two letters, how do we recite them? These two together. Me, nashay, because this is a shadda and this means that we have to connect it onto the letter previous to it. Nashay, if we say nashayta, it's not joined. So if you do want to read that again with nashayta, try that.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم.
Okay, so because remember, it's also the tashdid means to harden as well. So we have to just say it quite strongly. Nashayta. Try that again.
Nashaytan.
Much better. Yeah, remember that. So read it one more time for me. A'udhu billahi.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم.
Nashay. To connect it, we have to say nashay. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Go ahead and if you want to do your hifz, go ahead.
Ar-Rahman allama al-Qur'an khalaqa al-insan allamahu al-bayan ash-shamsu wal-qamaru bihusban wan-najmu wash-shajaru yasjudan was-samaa'a rafa'aha wa wada'a al-mizan alla tatghaw fil mizan والأرض وأقيموا الوزن بالقسط ولا تخسروا الميزان والأرض وضعها للأنام فيها فاكهة والنخل ذات الأكمام فبأي والهب ذو العصف والريحان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان خلق الإنسان من صلصال كالفخار وخلق الجن من مارج من نار فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان رب المشرقين ورب المغربين فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان
مرج
البحرين يلتقيان بينهما برزخ لا يبغيان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان يخرج منهما اللؤلؤ والمرجان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان
وله
وله الجبال المنشآت في البحر كالأعلام فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان كل من عليها فان ويبقى وجه ربك ذو الجلال والإكرام فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان يسأله ما في السماوات والأرض كل يوم هو في شأن فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان سنفرغ لكم أيها الثقلان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان يا معشر الجن والإنس إن استطعتم أن تنفذوا من أقطار السماوات والأرض فانفذوا لا تنفذون إلا بسلطان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان يرسل عليكما شواظ من نار ونهار فلا تنتصران فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان.
Okay, would you like to stop there? That's verse 37. Okay, so well done. That was really good remembering and reciting. You've done great memorization. Okay, so just a few things. So while we're reciting, it's easy to get lost in our own sort of habitual.
Can I recite? I know a bit more. Can I recite to where I know?
Yes, go ahead. If you want to quickly recite it.
فإذا شقت السماء فكانت وردة كالدهان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان فيومئذ لا يسأل عن ذنبه إنسان
Jazakallah. G3687, I'm going to have to stop you there simply because of lack of time, but you recite very well, so that's up to verse 40. Inshallah, next time when you come on, you can get the teacher to listen to you next time. Just two things. So while you're reciting, just remember that you know the sakin letters, the nun sakin ikhfa rule. So how do you recite this? If you could just quickly recite that for me 1 second. That's fine. So, but when I've noticed, when you recite it with a fatha before it, so if there was a fatha there, you read it as it's quite rounded. So this is how you recite it. San, it wouldn't be unsan, but yeah, in case there's a fatha before it, that's what occurs for you. And what happens is that because we were trying to recite the ikhfa, it turns into a rounded U. It still needs to be said as a in rather than otherwise it's going to sound wrong. So let me give you an example actually. Okay, for lack of time, I don't think I'll be able to give you that example, but what I would like you to do is just go over the audio, and while you're going over the audio, see how the nun sakin, the ikhfa, is recited online, okay? Jazakallah G3687. Jazakallah for that. Allah Hafiz. Okay, so that's brings us to almost to the conclusion of our class today. So homework for today is to memorize Surah Ar-Rahman verses 47 to 56. You should also be revising verses 1 to 46. The knowledge quest for today is: how many examples of waw mad can you find in Surah Ar-Rahman verses 1 to 56? So what we just practiced was the mad, the letters of mad, which were 3, alif, waw, and ya. In this case, we're asking you how many letters of the waw mad can you find in the verses 1 to 56 of Surah Ar-Rahman? Okay, so that's your knowledge quest for tomorrow. Inshallah, we should be asking you. Can I have a student for the dua as well, please? The ending dua.
Yes, I would like to give a chance to this temporary ID.
Yes, go ahead. Okay, Assalamu alaikum, temporary ID.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Okay, would you like to do the dua for today?
Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم اللهم ارحمني بالقرآن العظيم واجعله لي إماما ونورا وهدى ورحمة.
Well done, Jazakallah for that. Okay, would you like to do the translation as well quickly?
O Allah, have mercy on me through the great Quran.
Okay.
And make it for me the leader, the light, the guidance, and the mercy.
Jazakallah, that was very, very well read. Jazakallah, temporary ID. Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah. Okay, that concludes our class for today. Jazakallah for joining. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.